All right, all right, all right. I have two beautiful boats here in front of me, and I'm going to try and answer the question today, is spending more worth it? And in front of me, I've got a 2026 EdgeWater 250cc, beautiful boat in that 25 to 26 foot class. And then I've got a 2026 Key West 260cc. Same thing in that 25, 26 foot class. Both of them are twin engine. And your Key West boat, it's known more as a mid-tier boat. Nothing wrong with it. Great build quality. The ride is just great. And it's at a great price point. And then EdgeWater boats, they're known more of your top tier brand. And so basically, if we compare this EdgeWater 250cc MSRP to the Key West, the EdgeWater has a $268,503 MSRP. So you're almost spending $270,000 MSRP. Of course, this is MSRP. You know, you'll see different prices listed online. Dealers give different discounts, but you know, just for the sake of information, I'm just going to use the manufacturer's suggested retail price. And you've got this Key West 260cc with a MSRP of $211,360. So you've got a $57,000 difference there, which is a pretty big difference. I mean, both of these boats are, you know, in that 26 foot range. Both of them have twin 200 horsepower Yamaha engines. So they're kind of similar. But here's some of the things that sets out, both pros and cons. I'll start with some pros. You know, in a premium boat, you've got ride plus confidence difference there. So with premium builders, they often win on their whole design, their fit and finish, their stiffness, and how quiet and tight the boat feels in the chop. So basically, if you run more of your days in rougher water, the premium difference is going to show up for you. And that's less pounding, less rattles, and more confidence while you're out there in that water. You know, and then the same thing is true if the majority of your day is spent at the sandbars, snorkeling, just more pleasure cruising than actually, you know, putting a boat through what the elements can put you through. Then going with a mid-tier boat, really, you're not going to see that difference, you know, because if you're not out just giving it heck every chance you get, no matter what the weather is, then you're not going to notice those pounds, those rattles, those things that kind of drive some boat people crazy. Then you also have construction methods. So a higher end boat may justify the price with a robust lamination, better resin systems, more attention to like the stringer grid system, into bonding, into the hardware backing, wiring standards, foam void control. You know, there's a whole bunch more stuff that you get when you buy a premium boat like this EdgeWater here. It's a fully vacuum infused hull. You know, it's going to have a perfect fiberglass to resin ratio. It's got a lifetime warranty transferable to the second owner. And you've got a hand-laid hull, a very well-built boat here in the Key West. You're going to get a 10-year warranty on this product. I think half of that's transferable to the second owner. So that's the stuff that you get that you don't see. You know, when you pay for the things, like why is this one $57,000 more than this one? It's the things that you don't see, the hardware backing, the lamination schedule, the resins, the different care and the length that it takes to build this boat versus that Key West there. And then you've got long-term ownership as well. So premium can mean less gel coat crazing, fewer squeaks, fewer electrical gremlins. You know, and all that hardware is going to stay tighter for longer. You're going to have less stuff coming apart and costing you money over the life of the boat. And that translates basically to fewer nickel and dime fixes. And then resale value. You know, a premium boat's going to give you better resale value when you go to, you know, switch to your next boat or just get out of boating. Lord forbid that happens, but it happens to all of us. So premium brands are going to carry a stronger resale value. And basically you'll get a bigger, what they call halo effect. And that halo effect is when a brand's top tier reputation makes everything associated with it seem more valuable. even years later for secondhand products, you know, since it's a top tier, you know, people will say, oh, I've got to buy a Contender. I've got to buy a Yellowfin. I've got to buy an EdgeWater. And then they'll spend extra, even though the condition may not be there, they'll spend extra money just because of that halo effect, because it has a premium price on it. And then fit and finish, you know, quality of life details. Basically things like your hatches, latches, gasket sealing, lid alignment, bilge access, wiring, labeling, you know, nicer upholstery, better storage, better ergonomical setup for your boat. That stuff makes a difference in every single trip. Premium isn't always like more features. You know, it could be the same amount of features, but just executed better. And so premium boats, they tend to kind of execute things a little bit better than the competition. That's why they get a premium number. And then pride of ownership. You know, we all know the guys that say, I own a blank. And it can be a clapped out, you know, poop box, but it's still got the right name on the side of the boat. So that's all that matters, is that pride of ownership. You know, I drive a Chevy truck, so you know me, I've got a lot of pride of ownership. So glad I don't drive a Ford. But let me show you a few things that are kind of different in the build quality. Number one is the non-skid. So the non-skid of the Key West, I mean, it's great non-skid. It's functional. It works. Over time, this stuff will get worn down. And the non-skid won't be as non-skiddy. Non-skiddy, pop, pop. So that'll kind of go away and you'll notice it. Look at the EdgeWater's non-skid. I mean, this stuff is rolled into the gel coat. So this is a lot more durable for the length of the boat. And it just has a better appearance than this. This is great though, nothing wrong with this. But it has a better appearance, you know. Also, if we were to look, say, at this anchor locker right here, you know, perfect anchor locker, no problem. Looks great. You know, but she hits right there. It hits a little bit up here as well. You know, you can see like the tape line right here. Now I'm nitpicking, but look where they taped off the non-skid. They didn't do a perfect job of it. And so you've got some overlap there. And so let's go look at the anchor locker on the EdgeWater here. You know, your gap is great. Nothing's hitting. You know, you open it up, you notice how that lid just stayed. Now that one's got Gemlux friction hinges and we may need to tighten them, but this comes from the factory. Look, bada bing, bada boom. Stays there. This one's finished on the bottom. I think that one was finished on the bottom as well, but this is just a thicker, nicer hatch. This here, excuse me, these are not friction hinges, so you cannot adjust those. This is just what it is. It's open or it's closed. It is finished on the bottom. You know, it's not as finished as well. Look at that. Now that's just me being picky. You know, if I'm trying to spend the extra money, then it's the things that you see that make it a little bit better. You know, and this isn't the best finished bottom of a hatch there, just on that lip. But the fit and finish is a lot better here. That's what you pay for. You know, you've got a fully vacuum infused hull here, so you're obviously going to pay more for that. This layout, you know, I've got a lockable anchor locker here, and I've got two in-deck macerated insulated fish boxes, and I've got a giant dive door. You know, the Key West has got a half dive door, which is still functional. It still works. But you've got no index fish boxes back here on the rear. You do have an index fish box here. You know, this one's macerated. insulated. I like how they do the foam on the back here. You know, look where that lines up. Bigger gap here, small gap there. It's coming in contact with the boat. But this is great, man. I'll be fishing all day long. My family and my friends will never know the wiser. They won't know. They're not going to make fun of me because of that. You know, but my friend who owns an EdgeWater who goes out fishing on my boat, he'll probably be standing here saying, "What's that? Why is it creaking?" You know, that's what friends are for, I guess. But there's a flip side to every argument. You know, this boat is lined out well. Big giant fish boxes, cooler, tackle center, 12-inch Garmin's, full 100 horsepower of Yamaha goodness. And that one's the same. You know what I mean? Big Garmin's, 400 horsepower of Yamaha goodness, folding rear seat. It's got a single live well. I've got 2 giant live wells here. You know, past a certain point, you often are, you know, paying a lot more just to feel a little bit better. And that's where you've got to do your mathematics. You know, how much money do you make? What is boating worth to you? Is that your only pastime that gets you out on the water? You know, is that the only thing that you and your family do to get out and bond together? Then spend the amount of money that it takes to make sure that that happens. That's what I would say, because that's all that matters is the memories you take with you. But, you know, if you guys do a lot of other things and boating, you know, maybe paying a premium price for something that you're not going to use, you know, maybe that's not the best thing. That's where it comes like to the use case. The use case matters. Say that 5 times fast. You know, does the value match the amount of fun that you have in your boat? You know, if you trailer your boat a lot, you keep it outside, you've got a bunch of kids who don't take care of anything, you know, and you don't baby your boat. There's plenty of you that, you know, you don't baby your boat. You buy premium and then you beat the heck out of it. But if that's an example, you don't use your boat a lot, but when you do use it, you're beating the heck out of it, then maybe premium's not for you, you know? And then it's just that dollar to fun ratio, basically, that I was talking about, you know? If you buy a cheaper boat, the extra money that you save can get you bigger engines, better electronics, trolling motor, power pole, radar, Seakeeper ride, better trailer, more fuel for tips, more money in your pocket to tip your salesman. That's what I like to see. And then you've got to think about, you know, how much money am I spending out of my pocket? Most of us are financing these beautiful boats. And so what's my cost of ownership monthly? You know, I'm going to have a bigger payment on the top tier boat. And then when it comes to service these engines, when it comes to take care of the things that do nickel and dime me, you know, am I stressing myself out by just totally going right at the top of my budget to get a top tier boat? And then when it comes time to do 2 100-hour services, you're like, sorry guys, I can't go boating. I can't afford the service, you know? So it's a bunch of things, you know. Is buying a top tier boat worth it? I know you were probably hoping for a yes or a no, but it just depends on your specific situation. You know, if you're using your boat all of the time in the worst situations that you can put it through, you better buy a good brand. You better buy something that's built well, because if not, you're throwing money away. But, you know, if you're spending big brand money and your boat just sits on your lift, sits on the trailer, you never use it, and when you do use it, you just go to the sandbar, you may be spending money you don't need to spend. Unless looking good, having the best brand, having the best recognized thing on the market makes you feel good, then spend that money. Spend that money. Whatever makes you feel good, spend that money. So, anyway, that's the deal. Jared sells boats. If you're looking for a boat, I've got you. We're down here in Isla Mirada, Florida. And if you've got any questions, just leave me a comment below. And if I got anything wrong, or if I needed to add anything to the next video about this topic, please just leave a comment and let me know. Let me know what I missed out. Let's go buy a boat.